Are Rangers about to kickstart their season tonight? Hello, I'm Iona Ballantyne. This is Thursday the 25th of September and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Thursday morning. Coming up.
Yang on the touchline, Nygren moving infield instead. Looking for support, rolls it in, Iona takes a touch and scores!
Celtic and Red Star Belgrade battle it out for a 1-1 draw.
The potential to have some amazing moments at this club and nights that you can't replicate anywhere else, and also the potential to win trophies. And when we're in any competition, we'll be and we'll try and do our very best to win that. So I'm not saying we're going to win this competition, but we're in it, we're going to attack it.
Can Rangers get a win over Genk and take another step forward? And you wonder what must be going through Jimmy Tillene's mind as he hears a section of his own fans singing this.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, a very good morning to you. I'd like to say that this morning joining us is Robbie Neilson, former Hearts manager and current assistant coach at Belgian club SK Lommel, and Scott McDermott, sports writer at the Daily Record and Sunday Mail. First to last night in Belgrade, where Celtic were held to a draw by Red Star. Robbie, what is your kind of initial overview of last night's match?
I think it was interesting reading Brendan Rodgers' comments with regards, it's where Celtic are at the moment as a club and probably Scottish football. So I actually think it's a good result out there. When you look at their start to the season, 7 wins out of 7, really, really difficult place to go. It's like a cauldron there. So I think picking up a point gets it on board for the group stages, and over the course of that group, it'll become a very, very good point.
Just picking up on what Brendan Rodgers said, Scott, we are where we are. This is a good point for this group of players. What do you think he meant by that?
Yeah, he also said it was a kind of shot of realism. He seemed to be quite kind of pointed in that. I think I probably took that as almost a continuation of, maybe a wee bit of frustration from him after the transfer window and how it went. I think he said with this group of players, that's a really good point. Again, just trying to say, I think how he didn't really get what he wanted in the window, and in terms of the kind of squad makeup. The Europa League is probably about the level. And as Robbie says, when you go away from home in the Europa League, I think any point is a good one, especially going somewhere like Belgrade. So I think that's what he meant by that. I agree with Robbie. I think it was a really good point. It's a steady start to the group stage. I think there was real positives in there. Iheanacho, for instance, again coming on, scoring a really good goal. Young Colby Donovan at right back, I thought was terrific, especially getting into that environment, that atmosphere. And I think the only frustration might be that at times in the game it did feel as if it might be there for Celtic to go and win it. I thought Red Star were a bit vulnerable at the back, especially in that second half spell when Celtic get their goal at the start of the second half. And I suppose the other thing might be the performance of Daisen Maeda, who was obviously taken off at half time after a really poor performance at centre forward, and with everything that happened obviously with Maeda in the window, it did start to kind of raise more questions just about where his head's at the moment.
We will get into more about Kelechi Iheanacho coming on and scoring that goal, but Robbie, in the meantime, do you think Brendan Rodgers would have been disappointed that Celtic didn't actually hold on to that lead?
I'm probably disappointed it didn't hold on to it, but I think when you look at the bigger picture, like we said earlier, it's a point they're on the board, and I think the next 2 Europa League games are at home, which will give them the chance to really kick on, because I think Celtic's home form in front of that crowd is always excellent. So, you've got to look at the bigger picture. Yes, it was a disappointment maybe to lose the goal, but I think going into the game, if you'd asked Brendan before it, would you take a point here? I'm pretty sure he'd have taken it. And going back to the Maeda point as well, I think it's been difficult for him as a player with the stuff that's been going on in the background, but also I don't see him as a striker. He's done his best work out wide, and he's been asked to go there. So, it's difficult for guys like that at times to be forced into these positions.
That's an issue, Robbie, I think, with Maeda, and I agree with you. I think he prefers to play on the left, probably, and it's certainly where he's been most effective for Celtic. But obviously, Tenecki's now come in on the left-hand side and the fans have really taken to him. He's really impressed. So you can't believe you're saying this, but where does Maida quite fit in now with this Celtic team? Ian Acho's come on and impressed up front. Looks as if he's given them something different. Janecki's good wide left, and as I say, I just wonder where Maida's head's at the moment. I don't doubt they'll still have a big part to play this season, but it's become an issue for Celtic when it feels as if it didn't really need to be, especially when it was your top player for last season.
Yeah, I agree.
How does he look going forward?
Sorry, Iona?
How does this look then going forward?
I don't know, I think it's difficult. I mean, with Maida, something you would never accuse him of before would be attitude, work rate, stuff like that. I thought in the first half last night, I don't know if Robbie will agree, but there was times when he didn't look switched on in the game. No, there was times when Celtic actually worked an opening to use his pace, in the kind of last line of Red Star's defence, and he couldn't get himself back on side. It was as if he wasn't tuned into the game. I didn't think he looked sharp. As I say, that's why I just think mentally, in his head, we know now that he felt as if he was leaving Celtic. He was convinced that was it all over. Talking about him emptying his locker at the training ground, stuff like that. It might just take a wee bit of time to get his head back round that again and get back in the game. And look, I still think he'll be a big player for Celtic this season. Whether he's still there beyond January, who knows? That'll depend if big bids come in. And if Celtic go and sign replacements, which obviously they didn't do in the summer window. But I just think it's going to be one to keep an eye on, because it was a surprising performance for Maida for me last night. And when do you ever see him getting hooked at half time? I mean, that's almost unthinkable. It would have been last season. But it just shows you that Brendan Rodgers wasn't happy. And Ian Acho came on and did far better for them last night.
Robbie, who was it that stood out for you last night?
Yeah, I think obviously, Ian Acho coming on is a big one for him, getting that goal, to be honest with you. I think, there was some doubts when he came up, but obviously Brendan worked with him before at Leicester. But, one of the key things he had was pace. He was always very, very pacey running behind. And the age he's at now, he probably doesn't do that as much. But there's no doubting that he's a very good finisher. And I think we saw that last night with a goal. I also think it'll take him a little bit of time to really see his full potential or full qualities, just because he's not been playing that much, probably over the course of the close season and the pre-season, and he wasn't really involved. So I think as the coming weeks come, he might be more of a starter, and then you'll start to see the real quality that he's got.
Mm-hmm. Is he the kind of player, Scott, that will give the Celtic fans something to be really excited about?
I think so. Certainly the early signs are good. The interesting thing is, we in Acho, I mean, it feels like every time he does something good, the Celtic fans are almost kind of saying, well, there you go, you shouldn't have slagged us off for signing him so late in the window. I don't think that was the point people were making at the time. I think Ian Acho, everyone accepts that when he's at his best and he's on his game, he can be a top striker. He's shown that at Man City and Leicester, and he's obviously got that relationship with Brendan Rodgers that should bring the best out of him. The point at the time was just the whole situation regarding Celtic's transfer window, and it just looked like a kind of desperate move. In the last day, or even might have been the day after the window closed, when Celtic didn't get any strikers in to replace Adam Ida or Kyogo before that. But I don't think anyone doubts Ian Acho's ability. And as Robbie says, if Brendan Rodgers can get him up to speed and get him back to the form, which we know he's capable of, which he's shown flashes of already in the first couple of games, then I think it'd be an excellent signing for them. And he does give them something totally different to Maida up front. He holds it up a lot better. He brings others into play. He doesn't mind coming short. His touch is good. He's shown that already, as I say, in the last couple of weeks. So, if he continues, certainly what he did last night, the touch and the finish was outstanding. So, he could actually prove to be a really astute signing for them. They probably just needed one or two more.
And getting that goal last night really helps things for him and for the fans, Robbie.
Yeah, it certainly does. As Scott was touching on there, I think it was like, it wasn't the fact it was in the actual coming in, it was that Celtic having out and spent so much money, or big money to bring a big name in. So I think it was always going to take him a little bit of time to kind of, not buy the fans over, but the fans to adjust to it and accept that he is actually a top player. So there's no doubt he's got great ability. I think that, over the course of the season, he will prove to be a big, big player for Celtic. But I still expect him to go out in January and bring a striker in.
Now, attention turns to Ibrox, where Rangers host Genk under the lights tonight. Scott, is this a good chance for Rangers to really kickstart their season after victory at the weekend?
It is a good chance. It's a winnable game for them, Iona. They'll want the... It's quite ironic. These European games, they want and need the crowd behind them. No, that's been crucial for Rangers in the Europa League in the last few seasons, but there's obviously so much going on in the background. Fans still aren't happy, even after the cup win over Hibs at the weekend. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what the crowd is at the game tonight, to see if... No, I don't think it'll be a full house, which always makes it a little bit more difficult. But no, undoubtedly it's a real chance for Russell Martin to get another victory on the board, because he needs it, even after the weekend. Genk, I think Robbie will know far better than me, but I think they'll probably be a tougher test than what people maybe expect. I think people's looking at the start to the season. It's been a bit sticky. I think they've only got 8 points for 8 games. But looking at the fixtures they've played, most of the top teams in Belgium, and I think the games have been tight. They've got some really good players. I think they've already went to Poznan this season, scored 5. So it's a dangerous game for Rangers. But of course, given their Europa League record in recent years, especially at home, it's one they've a really good chance of winning. And again, it would be for Russell Martin to get another big European win. So obviously had a couple of decent results at Ibrox already this season in Europe. If he could get another one on the board, then it would obviously be massive for him, given the pressure that he's under.
Because Robbie, just Russell Martin, has that win over Hibs that eased the pressure slightly on him?
I don't know if pressure's ever eased when you're an Old Firm manager. I think it's always about the next 10 minutes of the game, and I think the first 10 minutes of the game tonight will dictate how the game goes. I think, hopefully, one of the key attributes both Rangers and Celtic have is in these European games is having a full house or a big crowd to put pressure on these teams, because like Genk will have, I think they're about 25 to 26,000 stadium, so they're not used to playing in that huge intensity. So if Rangers can get a good start and get the crowd behind them, it'll give them a chance to potentially go on and win it. But both teams have struggled this season, and I think Genk are 14th in the league, which for them is very poor. Rangers obviously sitting 11th, so I think it's going to be it's an interesting game. It'll be one that I think Rangers, I would think they'll be favourites, but I think Genk are a good team. They sold their main striker over the summer and a couple of other guys, so they are a selling team. So they kind of go in a lot of teams over here in Belgium go in a cycle. They'll go maybe a year developing, a year really, really good, and then they'll sell, and then they come down for a year and then they build again. So they're at the end of that first cycle where they've sold a few. So you're getting them at a point where they're bringing some development players in to try and bring them forward and try and sell them. So I think this is a great chance for Rangers to get maximum points at Ibrox, but it will be difficult.
Well, you are out in Belgium. Obviously, you just told us quite a lot there about what to expect from Genk, but what else can you tell us about this side, even players to look out for tonight?
To be honest, I don't know them that well because we've not played against them, but the majority of the teams here are unbelievably quick in the attacking areas. They sold the boy to Wolves. It was the main striker last season for I think 25 million maybe. And they'll have another one, the production line, and it's amazing. They have 3 or 4 top attacking players in each position, so they just rotate them in and out. So I think it'll be the mentality, to be honest with you. I think that a lot of the kind of clubs from this area, when they go to the big grounds with big intensity, they struggle a little bit. So I think if the Rangers can start well and get the crowd going and get that pressure on the pitch on Genk rather than on Rangers, I think Rangers can take the victory.
That's where I think the big onus is on the players. Robbie, because the crowd, it won't be a full house. There's a kind of antagonism there for the Rangers support towards the manager, now not so much towards the players, but certainly the manager. So I totally agree. I mean, the start is crucial, but it has to be the players that give the fans that, rather than maybe the other way about. Because I don't think the start of the game, I don't think it will be electric and loud, the way it might normally be for a big European game. So there's a real onus on the players to start the game fast, as you say, put Genk under pressure, make them feel really uncomfortable. I think if they do that and even score an early goal, I think it'll be crucial for them, because I think it will be a bit different tonight just because of the circumstances. I think there's a real responsibility there for the players to, as I say, come out the traps, start really well, put the opposition on the back foot, and that naturally will get the crowd behind them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important tonight that it's not a possession game at the start of the game. I think they've got to get it forward, got to get it into their box, get some corners, get some free kicks, get some penalty box entries, because you've got to get the fans on board.
Yeah.
And that's what they want to see.
Mm-hmm. Scott, do you not think the magnitude of the occasion would maybe take over for the fans, no?
It might, but again, it's not the Champions League. No, it's not Real Madrid or Barcelona. So I think it's tough, and especially just with everything that's going on on the outside. I don't know if there's any more kind of protests planned tonight, but I don't expect it to die down just because of the Hibs game at the weekend. I think there are bigger issues there in terms of how the fans are feeling about the manager, and also people like Patrick Stewart, the chief exec at the club. So there's not a nice atmosphere, there's not a nice feeling about the place, despite that win over Hibs. And I go back to that's where the players really need to get the place going. They need to start quick. As Robbie says, get the ball in the box, create a couple of chances, get a couple of corners. You just need to build that atmosphere. It might not be there, straight from kick-off. They're capable of it, but that's been one of the big criticisms. I think the Rangers, for a while now, is that they don't start games well enough. I think it was a bit better against Hibs at the weekend, but I think we play these teams from Europe, as Robbie said, teams that maybe aren't used to playing in front of 50,000, and they obviously hear about the atmosphere when they come to Glasgow, whether it's Ibrox or Celtic Park, and you need to make it intimidating for them. I do think it's a factor. If you look at Rangers' record in the Europa League, obviously getting to the final a few years ago, it was built on a real foundation of being so difficult to play against at Ibrox with that crowd behind them. And listen, it feels like it's a long way to getting back to that, but Russell Martin has to start somewhere, and a victory tonight would be really important for him.
Nico Raskin, someone who's been spoken about a lot, he's back in the squad at the weekend, back on the score sheet. Is he someone, Robbie, that can make a big impact tonight?
Yeah, he can. He'll be a massive influence in the game, and I think it's great to see him back in the team. Obviously, we don't know what happened in the background. We can only hear the external noise that goes round about it, but there's no doubt, as a manager, you want to play your best players, and I think he is one of the best players, and I think, you see for the game on against Hibs at the weekend there, he made the difference, so getting him back in, getting him on side, and getting him focused as well, super important, and that'll be one of Russell's kind of main objectives in the coming weeks.
Now, finally, a few managers have felt the heat this season already, including Aberdeen boss Jimmy Tulane. After Tuesday night's defeat at Tannadice, the boos rang out, twisting the knife. Sections of his own support broke out into a brutal chorus of "You're getting sacked" in the morning. Robbie, how hard is it for a manager when your own fans start to turn on you?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult when it's like that, and it takes a lot of strength from not just the manager but also the staff behind them, the board behind you as well, and the key thing is making sure that it doesn't affect the players, because ultimately they're the main people at the club, and they're the guys that get on the pitch that can change things, to be honest with you. And I think it's really difficult when it gets to that situation, because do you remain consistent in what you're doing, mm-hmm. and then is that seen as a strength or a weakness? Or do you become adaptive and then that's seen as a strength and a weakness as well, potentially. So ultimately, we can sit here and talk about it. You have to win football matches, and that starts at the weekend for them. So they have to, they have to find a way, and then you win one, you get a little bit of good feeling. You win the next one, a little bit more good feeling. It starts to roll like that, So it's extremely difficult. I've been there myself a couple of times, where it's, the pressure's mounting. And I think any manager in that situation, they have to try and get the support of their staff behind you on the board, but really focus on making sure the players are as comfortable as they can be, because they're the guys that will turn it for you.
Have you been in that situation where you're applauding your own fans, but they're actually giving back in ways you don't want?
Yeah, I've been there, and one of the reasons you do it, I don't know about Jimmy, what his thoughts are on it, but like sometimes you're going there to try and deflect it away from the players, to make sure that the players are seen potentially almost in a different group, so they'll back the players and they'll maybe go after the manager. So you're always looking at ways that you can basically try and make the players feel as comfortable as possible. You have to do that. So sometimes you'll have to go there and you have to be the guy that takes the wrath, and it allows the players maybe to have a little bit more of a free ride to then focus on the next game. So yeah, it's a difficult one to try and balance, because you want the fans on side with you as much as possible, but you also have to try and protect the players. But ultimately it comes down to you need to win football matches.
How does it, Robbie, affect you mentally? I mean, how much of that do you take home with you at night? I know football, managers say it's 24/7, your mind's never off the job, but when it's so difficult, you're under that much pressure and you're getting that much abuse, is it difficult almost to separate your kind of home life and private life?
It definitely is. I think especially when you're especially in Scotland, and if you're in a one club city, or a two club city like Glasgow, but definitely like in Aberdeen, where it's going to be constant. You go to the supermarket to do your shopping, you go out to a restaurant, that's the constant focus on you. So it can be very difficult. I know that's why a lot of managers, when they're at a club, will live out with the city, just to try and get that little bit of release. So it can be, it mounts, but I keep going back to it. You have to find a way to win. Your decision is, will you stay consistent in what you believe is right? If you win, that's the right thing to do. If you get beat, it was the wrong thing to do, and vice versa if you adapt. So there's no right or wrong reason for doing it. You just have to decide and then hope you get a result.
That's got to take its toll at some point, Robbie, no?
Yeah, I think it's just part of society now and part of culture, to be honest with you. I think when I speak about this quite a lot, and it's like, like fashion nowadays, everyone wants change all the time. That's what it is. You years ago you would go and buy a jacket and you would keep it for 5, 6, 7 years. Now you buy a jacket and you keep it for 3 months, and then you get another one. And it kind of, that's just the way society is. And it's the way football management is now as well. It's like we've got this one, 6 months, a year down the line, we want change, and sometimes it's not change for the good. Sometimes it's change just for the sake of change. And that's part of the way football management is. Your job now is to take the team and take the flak.
So football managers are like coats.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. Some are good coats, some are bad coats. Depends where you shop. Some keep the rain out, some don't.
Exactly. Well, Robbie and Scott, thank you very much for joining us. That is all we've got time for, and thank you for listening. Now, remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. So make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. We'll be back with plenty more tomorrow morning. Have a very good day. Bye for now.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the sorer obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out a back line. Somebody's washing,
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is,
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.